Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi there. How's everybody?
How are you?
Good.
All right, let me see.
Hi, Dennis. Hi, Dan.
Good morning or afternoon.
All right, we'll give it a couple minutes, obviously. Be right back.
Dan, how's the weather in Maine?
It was cool today. The sun came out about noon, but we still have plenty of snow on the mountain. So I've been doing some skiing. Today just skipped it because it froze overnight. And when you get soft snow that freezes, it turns into,
Ice.
an ice palace.
Yeah.
So, tomorrow morning, I'll probably go out if it stays warmer, or
Yeah.
maybe go to a late morning run, give the snow a chance to melt and soften up a bit. But they say they're going to continue skiing and keep the mountain open till the 30th. We'll see. We still have little piles of snow here and there around here.
Yeah, I was up this past Saturday and in Naples, and we still have some snow on the ground there. Little piles.
Yeah, just piles from the snow plows. That's all that's left.
Yep. Hi, Kevin.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah, so at this point, I'm thinking about getting the motorcycle out.
It's not too early for that.
Nah, if it's like 50 degrees, I'm good. I'll just put some extra clothes on. I got heated hand grips, so good to go. The biggest issue was getting some of the sand off the roads.
Yeah,
The sand on asphalt is very dangerous.
absolutely. Especially if you're on a motorcycle.
Yeah, exactly. One, two. Oh, we have a quorum.
Yep, we're getting there. There were a few people that couldn't make it, but couple more minutes. Thank you. Hi to everybody I didn't see earlier.
So my intent was to send a message to Steve Mayo to say, hey, put down your Mai Tai and join us tonight, but I don't know that he's going to do that.
I'm not sure he'll get the note.
Whether he gets the note or not, I hope that he enjoys his vacation.
Yeah, indeed.
Absolutely.
Are we all not supposed to be having Mai Tais now?
Is that a Main Street thing?
It's a Hawaiian thing, isn't it? But he's in I think, isn't he in the Florida Keys?
Yeah, he's in Key West.
Yeah. What's the drink of choice in Key West?
All of them usually. I don't know if there's a set drink for Key West, actually, Dan. I was there once. All right, go ahead. So I'm gonna say something else?
Nope.
All right, 7:01, I'll call the meeting to order. We have a quorum. Good evening, everybody. Finance Committee meeting for 4/20/2023. Hopefully you have got access to the link. We got a couple of meeting minutes. I'll first open it up for any public participation. Consistently none. Excellent. First meeting minutes are from forecasting subcommittee meeting of April 6th. Should have that in your group of information. Entertain any discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes, Jim.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion on the Finance Committee forecasting subcommittee meeting minutes of April 6, 2023? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next was the meeting of February 13th for the full Finance Committee. April 13th, sorry. Again, you have those minutes. Comments?
I'll move approval.
Second. All right. Taking notes just in case. Very good. All those in so the meeting minutes. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Oh, you voted approval. I'm sorry. All right. All those in favor of the meeting minutes for Finance Committee from April 13th, 2023.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. All right, those are the two procedural items on for tonight. And now we have members from the school committee, from the school department to give us the final overview and review of the school's financial budget. Whoever would like to start.
I can start, Jim, if you'd like.
Yep.
Jim, can I share my screen?
Let's see. Do I have to let you?
Yes.
Okay, help me out. How do I let you?
You can hover over the kind of the three, you hover over the upper right-hand corner of my screen. There's three dots and you can say share screen. Or give permission to share screen. If you don't, Jim, I can talk through the slide. I was not going to go through the entire slide deck, but I was going to go through kind of the adjustments that we've made and discussed.
Yeah, so I don't, sorry, I don't see it. And I did take the host.
Not a problem.
Well, there you
Jim,
go.
if you go down the bottom, you might be able to do it off the share screen button.
I just made you a co-host, so
That works too.
There we go.
there you go. Thank you.
So we're not going to, I'm not going to go through the entire slide deck. But what I wanted to do is to really highlight this slide, which kind of summarizes the adjustments that have been made. So as you'll see, the last bullet is we've aligned the proposed budget request to equal the $50,090,191 or a 5.22% increase with a tax levy of $49,590,191 and $500,000 coming from both revolving accounts and from ARPA that we have agreed that we'll get at the end of the year in FY '24. And so there's a 3 and 2, 300,000 and 200,000, which will make up that 500,000, which will equal the 50 million in total. Happy to answer any questions about that.
Open it up to the group. Anybody with a hand up?
Dennis?
Dennis had a physical hand up. Go ahead.
Doug,
Yes, sir.
last year you showed us your budget was a figure minus the ARPA money. This year, you're showing it as a figure including the ARPA money. Why can't we keep them both the same? So what you're asking is less.
Yeah, that's a great question, Dennis. I think the issue is how much money we can kind of get out of revolving. So we've looked at what expenses we can charge back to what accounts. And it looks, Dennis, like we can get between $250,000 and $300,000 expensed out of revolving for this coming for FY '24. So that leaves a $200,000 balance, and the $200,000, we discussed this with Steve, could come from ARPA at the end of the year. We're also looking, and I know this is going to be a question this evening, at trying to, at the close of '23 of FY '23, to try to give back some funds to the town as well. So that's why it is represented the way that it is.
Well, the main reason I'm concerned is that I want to keep apples for apples.
Yeah,
Request should be inclusive of that 500,000, just like we would make a motion on public works for snow for cemetery minus perpetual aid fund, you know, it come off the budget. So I think your school budget should be the same as last year. Your budget should be with that anticipation included in it. And if it isn't, you can come back later and ask for a reserve fund transfer. But I think your budget should be equal in the same basis as last year. So, so for future reference, we don't have to go and chase out, you know, we don't start at a $500,000 figure higher, because your actual budget would have been less if it was proposed with a lower figure. So that's why
Dennis, for the last 3 years, our budget has been increased by $300,000 to $400,000 annually. And so, so we're not looking to do something different than we've done in the past, and we'll kind of represent it and with. Can you still hear me? I just heard a ding.
yeah,
You're good. Somebody else must have joined. Sorry.
In talking with Steve, I think that that's the best way to represent it at this point.
okay.
I hear what you're saying.
Well, if I just reverse the last year's general statement and change it to the reverse, so they both stay equal. That's all.
Okay.
All right.
Last year would have been, you know, $300,000 higher. That's all.
All right. Dan?
Thanks, Jim. So I have a couple of questions.
Of course.
If I think I understand this correctly, I'm looking at page 54 of the full budget proposal. And that's page 54 is the one that shows budget totals by various schools, districts, circuit breaker reimbursement, and so forth. And so a couple of questions. I'm going to start with the Reading offset for post. That used to be $50,000. And as I understand it, Reading would pay us something for some of their students that would come to, I think it's behind the Greenwood Fire Station, but or
Oh,
whatever they,
Post Academy.
it says Reading offset for post. I'm not sure that's the academy. It might be.
Yes,
It
it
I'm
is. It's
saying it is.
posted.
It
Mhm.
is, okay. So are there no Reading kids expected for 24? And therefore there's no offset for that?
So Dan, the Reading, the district has withdrew from the partnership.
Ah,
And so they no longer have students there. So they have withdrawn from the partnership.
got it. Okay. And then the next item is ARPA, and it was 200,000. If I heard you correctly, with this adjustment to 500,000, the ARPA offset now to be 400 in total. Is that correct?
So the ARPA was 600 in total, 300,000, 200,000, and then 100,000. So in FY 23, it's 300,000. In FY 24, it's 200,000. And in FY 25, it's 100,000.
Well, that's okay, but that column adds up to 50 million. So what I'm hearing you saying is that you're gonna, the $500,000 is gonna be 200,000 for ARPA and 300,000 for revolving accounts.
Yes.
So that makes the grand total for ARPA 400,000, right? 200,000 to get you down to 50, another 200,000 to get you down to 49.5.
Yeah, yes.
Ah, thank you, Christine. Okay, so ARPA's at 400,000 and then the 25 or the fiscal year 23 to 24 is $100,000 difference. So now it's going to be 100,000 the other direction. Okay, cool. And then the other thing is on retirements, which is the last line item identified. In the past, retirements were an offset, a specific offset. And for 23 and 24, they're both zero. And I think you're reducing your salaries by anticipated retirements, but it's no longer a separate line item. Is that an accurate assumption?
Yeah, because in this year, what we've only anticipated 2 retirements. And what we try to do is budget for an average. People are usually retiring at step 12. So as you can see in the budget book, we talk about budgeting for the vacancies at either, I think it's a step 4.
Yeah, so
There's no,
So-
so we've accounted for the savings, Dan, is what we're
yeah,
saying.
but it's so those savings are buried in the various schools from Doyle, Dolbear down to the high school. Then it's buried within those calculations.
And again, this book was done in February when we only know of 2. Maybe we'll have more by the time June, July, August comes. But we talk about what we know at the time of when we put together the budget book.
Right, so there's, if you only have 2, then the anticipating savings might only be $40,000 or $50,000.
Right, and what we're seeing too is resumes coming in quite high, so there might not be any savings. We might hire someone at step 12 and it might be net neutral. Or we might have to account for them in another line, because we've budgeted for, an anticipated savings, but we don't know.
Oh, so your steps are not Wakefield service, it's all teacher service.
No, the steps here are Wakefield steps, but what I'm saying is we might get a fantastic candidate from Reading or from Wilmington with years of experience, and they might come in much higher than step 4 or 5.
Which is, I think you just said, Dan. I think you just said that.
Yeah, so I guess now I'm a little more confused. Let's assume that the person retires as a master's, so that's that lane, and the replacement's in that same lane, and they've got 12 years of service at Reading, and we hire them. Are they going to get the same pay as the person who left?
Yes.
So the steps are any teacher steps or any teacher service, not just Wakefield service.
So steps are years of service in MTRS.
Anybody, right?
In
got it.
public ed, but it has to be public education.
Right, including New York?
Massachusetts teachers are talking.
Math teachers, okay. Cool, okay,
They all retire from the same pension system.
got it. Okay, thank you. I'm good for now. I may come back.
Thanks, Dan.
After others, thank you, Dan. Bill,
I just wanted to ask, in, previous discussions and presentations, you had not brought forward using any money from the revolving accounts, and now that's part of your proposal. I'm just kind of wondering, how are you feeling about using those dollars, whereas, wasn't brought forward originally to eat into some of the, it's a little personally confusing to understand why, is there X amount that should always be in that account, those accounts? And are you now feeling like you're dipping below that, or?
No, in terms of, so a few of those accounts, the balances are higher than they have been in the past, Bill.
Mhm.
So because the balances are higher than they have been in the past, we're trying to, do this a little bit differently, right? And the reason we will always put the funds to good use. I think what we're trying to do is we're really trying to, be the best partners we can be, because we know that, we're kind of, we've gone through this, and that, we want to try to support and be good partners for the town while Steve's trying to do all the work he's trying to do. And so we just made adjustments accordingly. Did we have plans for that money? We did. But those accounts, not all of them, but a few of them have had higher balances than they have had in the past. And so that's what has created the opportunity, Bill, for us to do this.
Okay. You might want to consider in the future expressing those accounts in a way, when we look at it as a subcommittee of the first look, just an idea of, what's the minimum amount you feel like you can, not go below. Now,
Yep.
I guess in saying that, then that means it's open for you to give it up. But, it's hard to come around to understanding what an expression is of what you feel is, minimally the best number for you to have available to.
Yeah.
So, okay, I appreciate your feedback.
Thanks, Bill.
thanks, Joe. Hey, Joe, yep.
Yeah, I had a question regarding this one-time budget reduction of $500,000. Does that mean that next year, when you start your budget process, that your base is going to be 49,590, or is it going to be 50,90?
It'll be 50/90, Joe.
So you're going to get the advance of it, even though this is a one-time payment of 500,000. That to me is a concern. You're still going to end up getting the percentage leap from a 5% from the 4%. So that's a concern I have.
Duly noted. I think, we're just trying to be, at this point in time, the best partners we can. Like I said, similarly to Bill, I think, we will try to expense again what we can next year. And if we can offset it as we have for the last 4 years, Joe, we'll do that again in some way, shape, or form.
But our concern is the forecast that we're getting for the future, that we don't want to have that affect our AAA rating when we have to go out and borrow the money for the high school. That's my concern.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we're working on is really just thinking about, ending the year and how we can, in FY23, and how we might be able to give some money back to the town to support that, Joe.
Well, we shall see then.
Mhm.
Thanks, Doug Butler.
Hey there, I know you've made headway on this, but actually, are you going to detail out, where you're expecting, which of the revolving accounts you're expecting to pull the 300,000 from?
We expect to pull it, Doug, from Wakefield Academy, the Wakefield Academy account.
You're gonna do all 300 from there. You're not taking it from any of the others, from the pre.
So right now, excuse me?
You're not taking it from the pre-K or the food services. Right now, your projection is just pull it from there. And is that isn't documented on page 16, is it? That isn't accounted for in there, is it?
No,
It is not.
no.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, Doug, go ahead.
And just so to be clear, Doug, Mr. Butler, we can't take it from the food service account. We can't take revenue actually from any of our revolving accounts. We can't, it's not a revenue source that we can move. What we can do is charge expenditures that would have hit the local budget to a program. And in doing the analysis about what we can do, hopefully in 24, and I don't know how much longer we could do it for, Wakefield Academy is the only program that we could do this for. We are required to keep balances in most of the other accounts, most of them by statute, including food services. So we can't really touch that at all.
Doug, did you still have a question? It looks like.
Are you good, Doug?
Sorry, I muted myself there. Thinking I was all set. Yeah, so I guess I get the food services line. So what, so let's say that you just continue to run at sort of net zero profitability. Where does that $700,000 ever go? Or is there a way that you can spend that money?
So there's absolutely a way that we'll kind of spend that money. And so what Christine is saying, Doug, is that the monies that have come into food service have come in from the state and federal government. So the balances that are there are for food service. So it's for the purchase of food and for supporting food service and that contract, right? And so that's why that is off limits. In regard to how long the state will continue to pay for food is the big question. And
sorry to interrupt. So let me just fully understand this. Our surplus there is that we've gotten in a lot of money. You can't spend, you're not going to give the kids sushi every day. So you're spending the money in a responsible way around food. And that money has to stay dictated towards the salary of the food employees and everything else. And you're going to continue to run it just as you would normally versus,
Correct.
outside pizza every day. Okay.
Very good. Ed?
Yes, so one potential offset would be charging fringe benefits like health insurance, payroll taxes to the grants. And the school departments, of course, probably the major department in terms of getting grant money. And so I'd like to ask the superintendent, are we offsetting our general fund health insurance and payroll taxes with charges to the grants?
To which grants, Ed?
Well, let's talk, say federal grants, okay, Title I or IDA.
So Title I or IDEA, so those grants are earmarked for certain things. Title I does not fund many positions; they fund parts of positions.
Right.
IDEA, R242 and 840 fund special education paraeducators, and so we have paid for positions, but not for benefits from those grants.
Okay.
And just to be clear, the way we've written those grants, if we were to do that, we would have to reduce the amount of paraprofessionals that are paid from that grant. Hence, so they would have to go onto the local budget. They'd have to go somewhere.
The paraprofessionals have to go somewhere. Well, what I'm getting at is you've made a decision to spend the money on purely programming as opposed to indirect costs. That's a policy decision
Yes.
that some communities do, but many do not. So I'm talking about, if we're talking about ways to help the town side in the general fund budget, this would be one way. But so you're not charging it. Pardon me? I'm sorry.
I love to help you guys.
I'm sorry.
All right, who is that?
That's me, Manu. Have you heard of Earth Day happening at the Union Station tomorrow?
You're in the wrong meeting, sir.
I know. I'm just listening.
Just listening, he said.
Very good. Okay. You're gonna go on mute then. Thank you.
Okay.
Ed?
Sorry, I sort of lost my train of thought. Well, what I'm just saying, that's a policy decision that you've made in the school department. But I don't know if that's the norm, you know, throughout the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I think what you're saying that is for either future grants or rewrite of grants, there's potential there. You might end up with less FTEs, but the money would be appropriated in a different fashion, correct?
Right, and I'm concerned when I'm looking at the long-range forecast that's been presented by the forecasting committee, we're looking at some tenuous situations the next few years. And also, I
Correct.
just see the minutes here from the forecasting subcommittee recommending that we charge other charge fringe benefits for grant employees to the grants. So that's a recommendation that's come out. I think that should be at least thought about.
Yeah. I think Christine's point about the special education grants, 242 and 840 is that, you know, with 100 paras or 104 paras charged off to those grants to then take on, you know, health benefits, I think, you know, would be looking at cutting personnel likely by 50 or 60%.
What you could do, Doug, is what is called a 10% de minimis indirect cost on federal grants, as opposed to, you know, taking actual full actual costs, but that's something to be thought about.
Got it. No, thank you. I understand the point better now with what you just said.
All right, great. So it seems like another possible potential then down the road. Yep. Ed, thank you. Dennis?
Going back to the school lunch program. If the state goes ahead and does it again this year, fund the lunches and breakfast, I guess, too. What will you be doing with that money this year? Will that be offsetting payroll? And is there going to be a future deduction if that actually goes through in the governor's budget that we can anticipate before town meeting or at a subsequent town meeting, a reduction will be made and not be used elsewhere?
So just so I'm clear on the question, when will we know? Because we won't know about free meals until probably July.
I'm not worried about when you know, is once you know that it's funded, which we assume it's going to be, are you going to make an additional deduction for what you are anticipating using the school funds for without that being fully funded?
No, that money is going to stay in the school lunch program. It's going to fund salaries, it's going to fund equipment, it's going to fund supplies and food for the program.
It's out of that budget for the lunch program will be funding.
Yes, totally.
You can reduce what you're currently carrying to have health workers, you know, in the department there. They will be reimbursed by the grant or the governor's budget as a funding source, and you won't have to use that part of money you already have. So can you reduce the employee budget now?
I don't believe we can at this time, Dennis. I think we have to wait and see exactly what's going to be funded and how it's going to be funded and how the budget is going to work for the next school year. We're anticipating increases in prices, just in the cost of food, right? And so we will kind of evaluate this as we go through the budget next year. And we'll take it as it comes, if that makes sense. So it would not be prudent of us to cut the budget right now, because those funds, and in regard to food service, there would be no cutting right now because we have labor costs that come out of there. We have operation costs for the year for 7 schools, right? So we wouldn't do it now, but is it a conversation as we see things, how things shake out? It is.
So we can bring it back up again for potential budget reduction at a future meeting
Okay,
in the current year.
okay.
All right. Just so we can not have a look at it if we get additional funding for you're not counting on at this point.
I think we're happy
Recording in progress.
to do that.
Okay, thank you.
You're certainly welcome.
All right, was there anybody else? I don't see any other hands up, so. Wait. Evan, welcome.
Dr. Lyons, how are you?
Evan, how are you?
I'm doing great.
You look good.
I
All
just want
dressed
to
up there.
understand, what's that?
You look good, all suited up.
Yeah, it's only weddings and funerals now. But I just want to understand, I'm looking at your, it's page 28. I'm looking at your budget increase and decrease by sort of, cost center. What is your COLA for FY 24? Is it the same across all your bargaining units?
No.
It is not.
What is it in unit A?
We're still negotiating that.
But did you build in an assumption? Which I know you don't want to talk about, in a public meeting, but
So the answer is
not
yes.
hard to figure out, but
The answer is yes.
okay. What is it this year in FY 23?
2.5%.
Percent.
Because I'm just looking, it's like, your wage line's up 5.34%. And you're only adding 2 FTEs. What's your total FTE count? I'm
We
sorry.
have
to put you on the spot.
600 employees.
Right, so that's a really small dent, right? And what, I don't know, 2 FTEs, what is that? 140 grand, maybe less?
Maybe
I-
a little, it depends
would-
on where on the steps and columns we can hire them, Evan.
Right, I heard that earlier. Yeah, it depends on their experience from other districts, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm just, and your operational, your sort of your part 2 increases here in the LEA are kind of minute, on a percentage
Level
basis.
funded.
Yeah, well, almost, but yeah. I mean, you get 0.5%.
So Evan, you know the labor market, and it's the same. It's the same for all of us, right? So it's the same with police, same with fire, right? So we're looking.
Oh, I know. And trust me, it's a conversation I've had with Steve, but
Right.
it's like now we're on the sort of defensive in negotiations because inflation is sky high, right? And before, when inflation in certain years, and I've been over this before here, so I'll keep it short, but when we had the opportunity, because a COLA is a cost of living adjustment, it should be, weighted toward CPI, in my opinion, and you can do it at the negotiating table, and it's just, this is the result of now we got to go higher, maybe, or at least where we were, because we didn't really take advantage, I think, at the negotiating table. And it's not just you, Doug. I'm not pinning this on the school committee. I'm not pinning this just on you. I think it's honestly, it's true in the town too. The town side, we were kind of generous with the COLAs, I think, over years, and it's like the vast majority of your incremental increase here is basically contractual, and I don't know how much the students get out of that, to be honest. And that so that's,
I think
it's a big chunk. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So unit A is direct service in the classroom, right? And so I think there's no bigger chunk to help students in my opinion. And so, I think, and happy to discuss any positions that you think are extra or anything like that, Evan.
It's not the positions, Doug. I'm saying, if they get, let's say they get 3 and we could have done 2, how much more money do we have left in part 2 to do whatever you need to do for curriculum or whatever else? So
Yeah.
it's a big number to me. I get it. Your forecasting's probably accurate. The union's probably smart enough to figure out what you forecasted for them. So it's kind of just going through the motions at that point, but it is a big chunk of your incremental increase.
Yeah. But
And it's more than your total overall spend, like as a percentage.
right.
You look at personnel as an overall percentage of your budget. The incremental increase is way more on the personnel side year over year. So that number keeps growing in terms of your total operational spend as a percentage of your budget on personnel. So, and it's you're not alone, Doug. Like, I'm not telling you, you're an anomaly. It's a big number,
It is. And this business, right? And right now labor's ruling the roost. And so, and the beauty of the climate that we're in regard to labor is a lot of the settlements for surrounding districts and across the state are pretty public, right? So we pay very close attention. to what districts have settled for across the state. And we know we're going to be in a similar footprint, right? And that's what it's going to take to settle the teacher contract. And so that's what we believe to be true, and we're trying to plan accordingly.
Maybe, but I also think, we've been pretty good to those units over the last decade. So, I don't know how many other districts can say that. Maybe they can, but this is more of a macro sort of observation, is just, I think we can all be tougher at the negotiating table. It's not just the schools, but I think we can all be tougher at the negotiating table. But now's a hard time to do it, given your point about inflation and everything else. So,
No, thank you.
I just want to make sure I was reading it right, because it's a huge chunk of your incremental increase.
You are reading it correct.
Thanks.
Evan, thank you. Dan.
I'm going to defer to Stefan because I don't want to take my second turn before he's had his first. So
Good parliamentary rules. Thank you.
yeah.
Stefan. Thank you, Dan. One comment I wanted to make is over the years, all departments across the entire town provide us with Excel-based budgetary figures for what the current spend is in the current year. And it allows us to perform a little bit more of an in-depth analysis as a committee. And we greatly appreciate at least some of that type of data that allows us to play around with it. And we're able to ask a lot more informed questions as a committee. I believe this has been mentioned a while back, but the school committee provides us with PDFs and PowerPoint, which are certainly helpful, and these are definitely informative. However, there's a lot less that we can do with this, and because of that, I don't think that we're able to do able to perform the greatest extent of our role, because we're not provided those Excel sheets, or at least data that's in a format that allows us to at least see the percentages. For instance, dollar over year over year dollar increases or decreases, that's one thing. However, converting that to a percentage is much different. I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure what is able to be provided to us. We're already going through this already. But it would be great if maybe an after action item we're able to be provided that information in that format.
It's good feedback for us, Stefan. Thank you.
So I guess my question is, are we able to get that data in that format?
Right, this right now?
No, not right now, but I guess it would be after this meeting as a deliverable.
So we did provide the subcommittee, our liaisons, with all the salaries for the school department, Stefan, if that's what you're looking at.
It's not really just salaries, but I was looking at operations and maintenance across the the whole school districts. Assuming that the high school is going to be built in the next number of years or whatever, I would suspect that there would be some sort of decrease, maybe expected in the future. Maybe not next fiscal year, but just just something like that. But also, like I mentioned too, like us being able to calculate percentages off of this data.
And I also
that would be great.
Kevin Gill can provide any account analysis from Munis that you are looking for as well.
Christine,
Right, so when you look,
Christine, you really need to get this done. You haven't done it the last 2 years. Let's get it done, okay?
when you look at the tables in the rest of the book, that's the question. When you get to the point where you have the schools, and it keeps going in the back of the book where the top of the tables have the blue. Those tables in Excel would allow these folks to do just more in-depth analysis at our discretion. That's what.
So are you talking
Exactly.
about our
And I
budget
thought-
book? Our budget book is in PDF because that's how we provide it to the public. And you can convert any PDF document into Excel.
Right, so we're asking you to do that for us then. So what we're saying is the tables likely come from an Excel and go into PDF unless you type all this in, I don't know.
Yeah,
But it looks like it's Excel that's, saved to PDF. So it's a question that I think has come up before, and it's a valid one. So
I think it is a valid one, and I think, the question is when, right? The question is, so Stefan, in regard to the deliverables, when this meeting closes or next week, I don't know that we can do that next week. We can try to get you whatever you might be interested in, so we can certainly talk more about that.
Okay, yeah, one important thing I'd like to mention too is that the tables that are provided in the back of the book, the FY24 proposed school budget, I think there's just an important omission here is the FY23 actuals.
Yeah.
And there is just looking back throughout this latest budget period where we've been reviewing all departments, the vast majority of our questions come from our analysis of that column compared to the next year's proposed values.
Well, this budget book is done in February and fiscal 23 isn't complete yet. So that's why it's not, there's no.
Just a snapshot.
yeah, what we get from
wherever you're at.
what we get from the other departments is a 6-month number.
Got it.
Got it.
A 6-month number, and that's just whenever we see that budget, it was as of end of December.
I know, it's just a little for us though, with the schools, the teachers start in September. So it's not even 6 months.
But you have data on what you've spent to date, right?
Yeah, and there's 2 years of actual data in this book.
Right, and so we need to just slow this down a little bit. So I think it's duly noted.
That's all. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Stefan, are you good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dan first, then Doug.
All right, thanks. So a couple of things on the revolving accounts. I want to go back to that for a second.
Yep.
So I understand food services, no question there. Athletics.
Yeah.
Athletics used to be running around the zero balance at end of year. The last 3 years, it's about 170,000. Are you saying that on athletics, you can't tap those funds or something else?
I'm concerned about this idea of just tapping funds like we can just drain accounts, right? So monies that are in accounts for athletics have to be used for athletics. Monies that are in accounts for facilities are used for facilities, and so goes the entire list, right?
Okay.
So
I get that part.
Yeah.
But supplies appears to be a new category. I didn't see any balances before 2022, and it's like $60,000. So is that balance ARPA monies that came in because of COVID?
No, none of these revolvings are new.
Okay, so where's the supply of funds for supplies?
It's to replenish supplies. So schools have, I don't know if you've noticed in front of the Woodville School, for example, we have drop-off boxes for textiles. So community members can drop off clothes or books, and we get a reimbursement for that for schools. And we buy school supplies with that money. So it's put in a revolving account.
Okay. Summer schools, who cares? Performing arts is small. The pre-K revolving account was hovering around zero for many years, and now it's like $750,000.
Right. So this coming year.
So that was that big increase due to ARPA?
So no. So we opened a new preschool class. So we've had growing enrollment at the Doyle, such a fantastic program. And I think next year we're going to actually open a second classroom at the Woodville School. So we have all of that money is from tuition payments, and we are funding Doyle preschool teachers with that money.
Aha, so it's an expansion of the program.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you on that. So back to Doug's question, I actually looked at, no, it wasn't Doug, it's Evan. Personal services is going up 6.44% from 23 to 24. So if you look at materials and supplies, it's actually gone down a little bit, but the personal services is almost 6.5% increase So obviously it's a lot more than just, 2 people. And then I think that was the open question that Evan had. So I wanted to give him that feedback. So I think I'm good for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Doug? I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
That's all right, Doug. You used to run in meetings. I like that. What do you got, Doug Butler?
Oh, I was waiting for you to call on me.
Oh,
So
thank you. Sorry,
I was
sorry.
on the very rare occasion of being good. So, speaking to, one thing is and this gets to this whole notion of the Excel stuff, but the other thing that we don't really get the full breakdown of is, I know that it's almost like the 27 pages of each individual school, each individual item there is great. And then you summarize, and we've had this conversation, give us a summary by school, and then you give us a summary by DESI function, which doesn't really allow us the ability to dig in on evaluating the change of those professional salaries and things like that. But to cover Evan's question from earlier, his raising of there's I forget what the number was in terms of baked in increase. So it looks like there's a baked in increase of 4.88 for instructional services. Let's just operate under that that's where the teacher's budget is, but there's a bunch of other things embedded in there. But, frankly, 2 years ago, it was 8.8. And last year it was only 2.5, but so the compound rate over the last 2 years has probably been 5 and change. So it's about 5, you're baking in about 5 now. And that really stems from what I think Evan was saying before is, so you're automatically, you're at 4 to 5 with a 2.5 COLA regardless. And that's what all of our town things are. We trumpet the 1.5% COLAs, but they actually end up being 4% raises. So that's the only thing that I think, and this is you're in negotiations, but that's the thing that one has to get a handle on is it can't be a published 4% rate and then an actual 7% rate. So that I think is the struggle. And in terms of getting the Excels, you maybe can get them for this quarter, but it just needs to be fixed for next year. And you guys know that. And it's been a frustration for many a year. So, by the way, it predates you, Christine, this frustration. So
Hopefully.
So it means, okay, go ahead.
But I know some, eventually we're gonna get to somebody that'll fix it for us, Christine, too.
All I know is we all use Munis, Jim. All the information, this is pulled from Munis.
Right. So,
We all accept the 15 on this meeting, but anyway, go ahead, Doug.
So hopefully, it can be acknowledged that we're doing this better than we have in the past. And I think, the partnership has grown stronger than it has been in the past as well. So I think that that's a positive piece. The other thing that I want to bring up is the increase in Chapter 78, right? So we're looking at a 9% increase or $700,000 that in it is coming in. And Chapter 70 does not go down, right? And so that's kind of going to be a huge help for the town and for budgeting. And so I think that's a piece that can't be missed as well.
No, I agree. The need for state aid is never been greater, and every year it gets the need continues to be more, and the supply is usually less. But yes, Evan.
Christine, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I will take a few swings here. Do you build your LEA in Munis? When you build your LEA in your initial proposed budget, when you actually build that document manually, are you doing it in Munis?
I don't think the town uses the budget module here in Wakefield.
Okay, so how do you build your LEA? What do you build it in? What software?
So we use the current payroll. So we know who's on the current payroll, and we know we do a projection of where everyone's going to be based on the collective bargaining agreements for all 7 agreements. And we do that analysis and we build the budget from there. But it's also in conjunction with the principals and the department heads.
Oh,
So
100%. No,
this
I
is
understand.
the Bafagna budget. This is
I understand the mechanics you guys go through and all the stakeholders you invite to participate. I understand that process. And frankly, I don't have a criticism of that. I'm just wondering, like, technologically, like, where do you build your budget? Is it in Excel? Is it in another software? Because what Stefan was getting at, which was a really, really good point, honestly, is just like, we can't really do a lot of analysis. Even if we converted that PDF to an Excel document, it's still not going to be like perfectly manipulable, you know? So I'm just wondering, like, I'm trying to find the easiest way, I'm trying to find the best way to make this easy for you, basically. And we can chat offline about it, but
okay.
We can do that.
Great, thank you. You good, Evan? Yeah, okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, Doug and Christine, and I think there was at least Kevin, I think, from the school board. Thank you for joining us. I don't think we have anything else for you. We're going to discuss and vote on the budget. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go. Your choice. Thank you for scheduling us or me scheduling you. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the feedback.
Here. All right. Any other comments? I'm going to talk to Kevin or ask Kevin to chat. What I don't have is a vote sheet per se, but I don't know about anybody else, but I want this done. I want to vote on this, and I want to be able to sort of put a bow on it for now. So Kevin, when we vote on the school budget in the past, there's a component of from the tax levy, and then there's a component from grants and available funds and such. Is that
That's
reasonable?
correct. That's correct. I can give you those numbers, Jim, and then if someone wants to just move those numbers.
Okay, is there any other dialogue you want to have, anyone? Well, give me the numbers, Kevin, first, and Joe or Dan can write them down to be regurgitated for us. Go ahead.
Okay, from my understanding, we're reducing the school document by $500,000. So the tax levy portion would be $49,590,191. The amount from available funds, which is the bus transportation fees, is $115,000 for a total school budget for fiscal '24 of $49,705,191.
Okay, so tax levy 49,590, 191. Available funds 115,000. Those are bus transfers. Total budget of 49,705, 191.
Correct.
All right, and that's the way we've done it in prior years. Is that right, Kevin?
That's correct.
All right. Any other final dialogue, comments, or otherwise on the school budget?
Well, I have one. Why is it 50 million, 90, and this number we're going to vote on is 49,705?
Because of the 500,000 out of it, correct?
That's correct. From my understanding, the school was going to charge 300,000 off to a revolving account, and that there was another additional 200,000 being charged to ARPA.
Okay, so that we don't deal with ARPA. Is that what it is, Kevin?
That's correct. It's
Okay.
just,
You good,
All right.
Joe?
Yeah, no, that makes sense now. I'm
Yeah.
a little confused by that. Forgot about the ARPA where we don't have anything to say about it.
Ed?
Well, you want to comment? I think the school department needs to be far more transparent than they have been in the past. I'm just hearing all these comments here about the history or whatnot. I also sense a lot of defensiveness on the part of the school department folks here tonight. I know of no statutory provision in the Mass General laws that requires a minimum balance in these revolving funds, and that's a statement that was made. I haven't called the school business manager to task on that, but I just wanted to make that clear. I'm not aware that we have to require, there's anything required to keep a minimum balance. So those are my comments.
Thank you. And I would echo that. I think they have guidance or policies, maybe, Ed. I don't know that, like, as you say, I don't think there's some absolute guidance that they must do this or must do that. Correct. But again, I concur. Yep.
Yeah, but I think she insinuated that it's illegal. That's how I read that, you know, so there may be, it may be their policy, their guidance, but there's nothing in the law that says that.
Dan.
Thanks, Jim. So I have a lot of comments. We don't have a motion on the floor yet, but I'll give you my comments before the motion, or we can.
Well,
wait
I
till
was
after
just
the
asking
motion.
if there was any more dialogue or debate before. Either way, go ahead.
Yeah, all right, I'll start as if there is a motion on the floor.
I'll be glad to have a motion first if you'd like. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I will go ahead and make the motion of 49,590,191 from tax levy, 115,000 from bus fees, for a total of 49,705,191.
Second.
Second by Joe. Discussion. Dan, your
Okay.
hands up.
Yeah, so a number of things. I think this budget's too high. I think Joe really put it well at the beginning of this meeting, where they are setting a very high base at their 50 million. And they have talked about, you know, I don't know, so some of us on this committee have go back to 2016, when we granted an 11.4% increase to the schools. It was a huge increase. And there's a gentleman's agreement, no more than that, that they would keep their budget increases thereafter at 4% or less. They did it for 3 years. That was the gentleman's agreement. They did it for 1 year, 3.8%. Then it became 5.2, then it became 5.5 in the 2 subsequent years. Prior to 2016, their increases were 4.9, 5.5, 6.2. If I take the average from 13 through 24, their average increase is 5.4% per year. Our revenue has not been growing 5.4% per year. They're taking a bigger and bigger piece out of our total revenue amounts, and we can't sustain this. I mean, you guys have seen my spreadsheet. You know where things are going. By taking $300,000 from the revolving account, another 200,000 from ARPA, it is a Band-Aid. Those are temporary increases. So they're baking in very large increases. I mentioned a 6.45% increase in personal services. 645, just think about that. For 2 people added to 600, yet they're baking in 6.45% increase in personal services. This can't be sustained. It's not a sustainable budget, despite what they said and what Mr. Chines has said. We can't sustain that, not without some huge increases from the state aid, big increases in local receipts. I made the motion, but to me, I want to amend it, and I want to reduce it by another $500,000. And my amendment is to make the budget 49,090,191 plus 115, or 49,205,191 for 24. We need that $500,000. I hate them using Band-Aids, but that's what they've thrown out there, and it's not sustainable, because they'll sign a 3-year contract. In 25 and 26, they'll come back to us asking for another 5% for both of those years. And I think that's where they're headed. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks.
I'll second that amendment.
There was a motion. Joe seconded the motion.
And I agree, but because as indicated when I talked about in the very beginning, they're just building in that 500,000 in the next year, and I don't think that should be appropriate. The base should be the 49 million. So I agree with Dan.
All right, so there is an amendment to the motion on the floor for an additional 500,000 removed from the school budget. Discussion on that. Joe, I got your discussion. Thank you.
Oh, I might add, just a reminder for anybody who wasn't on the meeting, our last meeting, they have approximately $5.7 million available in cash, 1.9 million carryover, 1 million in circuit breaker, and 2.7 million in revolving accounts. So it's something I think they can handle, an additional $500,000 reduction.
Stefan.
I would just like to point out that I think what is consistently mentioned when we're talking about the school budget and the increases year over year is that somehow this is unsustainable for the town of Wakefield. And I think in a comment that I made a couple meetings ago is that Wakefield is dead center median spend, at least on a expenditure per pupil standpoint. The responses that I think that have come back to me on this is that our tax base is different. It's lower, and I think that's we have two problems here. We have a public need and certainly a public want. I have 4 kids that are going into the school district, so but also this this other aspect of our tax base being so low, we are fighting tooth and nail against the town council to prevent them from hiring an economic development manager for the town in order to solve that problem. Yet at the same time, we're attacking the school for trying to do the job that it's supposed to be doing. And I think, in terms of being responsible for the taxpayers' money, I think having the Excel data, giving that to us, allowing us for deeper analysis, we can certainly verify that they're not playing games or anything like that with the money. Unfortunately, at this point, we're not able to say that. I think a number of our viewpoints are, I think, improperly skewed a negative because of that. I just wanted to throw out those comments, but no questions for
me. Bill.
Yeah, I, as it relates to the motion that Dan made, I don't understand procedurally. Where does that go?
So that's now, sorry, Mr. Chairman, that's now the motion on the floor, right? So that's the motion we have to consider before we get to the primary motion.
Right. So what would happen, Bill, is the recommendation book that would go to town meeting. If we agreed to reduce the request, there would be the column that would identify what is recommended by us would be less than what has been asked for by the school committee.
Okay,
And
so merely the finance committee's recommendation on the motion.
it is, yes, I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah.
because, we're not empowered to reduce, anybody's budget, so. So it would go to town meeting at the amount that has been brought forward, and we would be saying we want to attach an amendment there to reduce the budget at that time in front of a town meeting. I just don't understand how this would work.
Yeah, Bill, that is what would happen. The motion would be made by Doug at the 49,590. And then Jim would get up and say the finance committee recommends a lower number, and that would be followed by an amendment on the floor. And then town meeting would decide whether they would accept the lower number or not. And if they voted against the lower number, then they would vote again on the 49.5. So that would be the procedure that would be followed.
Okay, little clunky methinks, but I respect what you're saying.
Evan,
I mean, I would also just say to Bill's comments, like, you know, I guess anytime you try to change the proposed operating budget, it's a little clunky, but like, what are we doing here if we're just gonna say yes all the time? That's sort of my position on it. So I'm gonna vote yes on Dan's motion to amend. And my overall position is, and you've heard it before, like, I negotiate harder, like, get better deals. And we missed the best chance to do that. We did. And now it's a lot harder to do that, but we're sort of looking at the consequences that we set up for ourselves, you know, a decade ago, maybe even a decade and a half ago. I just, at some point, like, you know, we're talking about the ARPA funds offsetting operational expenses. I agree, that's a horrible idea. Because you are baking in a total operational spend that is going to need to be sustained to sustain the existing operation that you know, we would approve tonight if we approved this budget. And what that just leads to is a fiscal cliff, and it leads to way more devastating cuts. So I think we got to be a little tougher at the negotiating table. And again, it's not just the schools, it is on the town side too. We can do better. You know, I think I said this last year, at some point we got to kind of put our foot down, and the numbers are the numbers. Like, Stefan, you know, I hear what you're saying, and you asked, you know, you asked great questions about the Excel data, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they're not playing with the numbers. We're looking at them, and the personnel costs are way outweighing all of the operational costs. And so that percentage of the budget that is allocated toward personnel expenses keeps growing year over year, because the incremental increase is so lopsided toward personnel. And to me, and like, yeah, we don't have any binding authority, no matter what vote we take. I mean, we can vote to recommend anything. So to me, I would like to recommend a more sensible number. And so I think Dan's motion does that. Thanks.
thanks. Ellie,
Yeah, I think I just wanted to echo what Evan just said. Actually, it's more of the ARPA funding that's kind of a Band-Aid on this that we're gonna end up having to spend down the road, right? So that's a concern of mine. Just essentially what Evan just said is we're looking at an incremental increase in spend without funding in the next few years. And I think, you know, Dan's workbook kind of shows us what that's going to look like. So and I guess more of a clarification question is, if we're recommending a lower budget, does that mean that we're recommending a lower spend, or that we allocate revolving funds? Because if it's not a lower spend, right, that incremental increase over the next few years is still going to be there. So I guess I just was looking for clarification on kind of what we're recommending. Are we actually recommending a lower spend?
I thought that was what Dan was recommending.
Okay, then I
Dan, is that your intent of the motion?
Yeah, it is. I think we need to lower the base because it's going to really hurt us and, you know, beyond 24.
Yep, then I agreed with Dan's motion.
But town meeting only votes on the tax levy, right? Is that what Steve said to us last meeting?
I believe so, yes. Well, so the
But
executive.
again, we can recommend whatever we want. I mean, it's not binding, so we can do whatever we want. But I think that's that number is the tax is the, you know, the number coming from tax levy. But I could be totally wrong.
You're right.
Don.
Yeah, so, you know, I appreciate some of the comments on the, you know, having the data available in a format that we can work with. But I also, you know, there is data available in terms of the DESI data that's available. I wasn't part of the committee several years ago when Dan's gentleman's agreement was made. But I guess my question is, if if that was the case, how do we still end up being a school system where the average salary is $2,000 below the state average? And our per pupil expenditures are right in the middle of where per pupil expenditures are in the state. So, I understand that, folks feel that negotiations haven't been as aggressive as they have been with the teachers, but if you look at Woburn, which had some very serious issues several months ago with their teachers, their teacher salaries last year were $10,000 higher on average than the Wakefield teacher salaries. So, I think that's, we have to ask what type of school system do we want to have in Wakefield? And, how do we stand up against the competitive school systems around us?
More state aid.
Anything else, Dawn? I understand what you're saying. I don't think we can get more state aid tonight. Doug Butler. Doug,
You're on
can't hear you.
mute.
We certainly can't get more state aid tonight, but actually reducing and like squeezing this budget. And again, Dan's taking the tack that this is all a school department issue, and the school department increases, like Stefan said, like Don just said, it's choices we've made. It's choices we've made over the years, and it's choices we've made about our department. We could actually, we could solve this problem, Dan. And you're like, oh, you could solve this problem. You can solve the spending problem. The easy way to solve the spending problem is to cut 500 grand from the schools. The harder way is to clamp down on other places, clamp down on the growth in other areas. And before you start in that they've had this rapid growth over the past 5 years, sure, it's a bit above persons of protection and property, but it's sort of almost right in line with general government. And it's a little below your unclassified line. It seems to me that, I get it that you're like, oh, we can't, this 500 grand is going to, Dan, bankrupt us, I feel like it was almost saying, which is absurd. And by the way, if this passes, Dan, can this be the last time we hear about the 4% promise that you're stuck to now for 7 or 8 years? Now let's just get over it. Move on. Things changed. The events changed. But
I'll answer your question, Doug.
If we reduce it by 500,000, by the way, they still can spend 50.4 million. I mean, he could probably pull that money from somewhere else. And I get that you're saying oh, let's lower the base. By the way, the base for the taxpayer is going to be 49 million. And maybe, there's no guarantee. And this goes for the BS safer grants that we have for the fire. It goes for the grants that we have for the cops. It goes for all of these things. This is excess. This is spending over what we as a town have budgeted for you. We may not have, we may not be able to make up 2.5 plus the 500 grand next year. And you may have to cut people. You don't have to next year, but you might be facing something where it is painful. And that's what Doug's going to have to deal with going forward. But I think that both the idea that, and by the way, I don't know, by the way, we don't have a decision on ARPA money. We don't get to say anything about that. That's the council, right? Is that the council's money or is it Steve's?
Council.
All right, so it's the council's money. They can spend however they want. And frankly, he's spending look, they came to us with this initial budget. Now they're not changing their number, but they're pulling some of it from their cash. And what I guess we're getting at is, Dan, you want them to pull 800 grand from their cash versus 300. They've said that's hard. I think Do I think it's doable? Yeah, possibly, but also would be doable to do it again next year, to budget that 300 over a couple of years. And let's not have this fantastical argument that like he could have come in here with a bullshit number for COLA and said like, oh, no, I'm not doing that. And then come back to us, oh my goodness, negotiations were much tougher. So I think we're being a little like, yeah, do I love the format we get it in? Not particularly, but do I think that this is, by the way, is this the right amount of spending for our town in terms of education? Yeah, probably proportionally. And we're middle of the road spenders. And by the way, over the last 20 years, and everybody here has benefited from it, we've become a more than middle of the road community. So, let's get off our high horse about not spending on like cutting education funding. Education funding is what keeps you as an expensive town. Like having good schools keeps you as an expensive town. Let's just acknowledge that and move on.
All right, Doug, I have a couple of comments, but Bill, your hand is up.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. I respect the, feedback from other members of our team. However, I don't think we've been consistent in telling anybody other department to negotiate harder. We haven't done that. And, and as it relates to what happened years ago, and of course I sat there, we all sat at the table about the gentleman's agreement, but Dr. Lyons wasn't at the table during that time. And I would think probably none of the school committee members were school committee members at that time. So, that thinking's unsustainable.
Well, one of them still is.
All right, well, but right. But it's unsustainable thinking in terms of, people changing leadership within the schools or on the school committee, who are the people that, run the schools and with the administration and bring forward the budget. So I just want to offer that, if we were saying to Steve on all his budgets, negotiate harder, and, we were taking, I guess we're going to take a line as it relates to economic development. I agree, using ARPA funds is just a slippery slope, but they're they're being used for various things. We can't stop it. So anyway, that's all, Jim. Thank you.
Dennis.
No matter what we do with this 500,000, it all can be wiped out in year-end savings that would come back to the town by them just carrying over surplus money to make up that 500,000. How do we get assurances, Doug, that the leftover money from 23 is going to be, if it's going to be empowered for next year? I would like to see a statement showing where each dollar is going to go to carry it over, whether it's a contract already issued, as purchasing a computer, let's say, and you haven't got delivery of it yet, so you haven't paid for it, so you're going to be carrying that budget over. I don't want it to be said that it's carrying over for personnel because the cost went more, so we're just carrying over $500,000 and not say where it's coming from. If it's personnel, we want to know that, and that may be a no-no to do. So I'm concerned about the carryover money and where we stand legally to be able to report back and what they legally can do to not turn over all the money that is unused. That's my basic.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess my comments, I'll let Doug speak. So I don't agree with the motion on the floor. I think at this point, the schools have figured out they had an original budget. They're adjusting that budget by $500,000. The ARPA funds are across every town. They're being used in ways, shapes, and forms that may not make good sense. We, as the finance committee, have made that clear and continue to make that clear to the people that come before us, whether it's towns, whether it's the town council. And we're doing our best to forecast, warn, explain to the department heads as to where we are and what's coming. And the use of these ARPA funds is going to have, you know, substantial problems down the road potentially. So, but as others have said, where we are as a town and where we are as a school spend, we're not high end. These aren't gold-plated teachers. They're teachers that are paid a salary, agree, disagree, or otherwise. But when you compare it to the Middlesex community or other communities, we're not. I don't think we're in the first quartile. I'd have to defer, but I know you know, we're certainly not you know, on the top of the mountain for that. As far as this 500,000 potential, I would agree with what was said earlier. Negotiations, again, we say it, we recommend, we educate, and department heads do what they do. And we continue to do the best we can, and whether we succeed or not is in the results. And I would argue that this year, the change of the 500,000 that's already put into the book for the schools is a step and is a change. And there's no doubt about it. We see what the forecast looks like. We also see that money comes back typically each year. That may change in a year or two or otherwise. But the idea that the schools are trying to return money this year, and looking at the budget, they think they can return some money this year. You know, we let Steve Mayo and his departments have budgets that miraculously return money every year. We have projections for local receipts that are lower than projected, and we get money back into the free cash. And I would go out on a limb and say we work hard every year, and then we end up getting more cash back than we anticipate, or we get more revenue than we anticipate. That'll change someday, but I don't think it's this day. And I just don't think take an additional 500 off of this budget is appropriate at this time. Thank you. Doug Lyons.
Thank you, Jim. So I just want to again remind the group that Chapter 70 has not gone down. In fact, it's going up 9% this year, which is an additional $700,000 that we're getting that is coming into the town, that goes into the general fund, right, to fund the foundation budget. And the state has kind of advised that the percent change in the foundation budget is 5.09%. Your points about sustainability and about communication and about access to information, I don't think they're missed on myself or Christine Bufagna. So I think that's important. In terms of referencing the gentleman's agreement, I think I'm with Doug Butler on this. I think I was not here when that agreement was made. I don't know how that agreement could have been made because I don't know that it's sustainable. I also want to be clear about the increases that were provided at that time. You know, we went to full day kindergarten in Wakefield. We also opened a new school, Doyle Pre-K, which was, you know, spending money to actually save money in the long run, because students age 3 to 5 that need special education services are entitled in their town to receive services. And if they need to go out, those funds come from the school system. So that was a really smart move. But we opened a school and staffed a school. We went to full day K, and we also opened Post Academy, which was an 18 to 22-year-old program to I think save money as well, and create programming in district. So I feel like we've made a lot of gains. I think Chapter 70 has not been really discussed or acknowledged. And again, your points and feedback around communication, transparency, format of information, not missed on me for a second. So thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Doug. Dan.
Okay, couple things. One, if we had the money, I would fully support what the schools have asked. It's just that I'm looking at our revenue and what we have available. So I'm not anti-school. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to make a sustainable budget into the future. So I hope nobody takes that differently than that. One of the things on the foundation, the 502, our total net school spending is about $70 million. And the foundation is in the 40s someplace, 41, 42 million. And I heard Christine mention the 502% or whatever the foundation increase was. And I thought that did not make a lot of sense to me. So I checked with DESC, and their comment was, we really don't care how much the foundation goes up. It's really a matter of, are you spending at least the foundation amount? And we're at 70 million roughly versus 42 or 43 million. The 502 or whatever that one is somewhat of a hollow argument. Granted, down the road for next 40 years, if the foundation goes up faster than this budget, it may become a problem, but none of us will be around when it happens. So I just wanted to make those 2 points clear, that I'm not anti-school. I just, looking at the forecast, I don't see it happening. I understand that Chapter 70 in House 1 is increasing 700,000, but Doug, maybe you can answer this question. Has the Senate and the governor also approved that $700,000 increase for Wakefield?
I don't believe they have yet.
Okay.
So I can chime in. The House number came out and it's the same. They kept Chapter 70 level funded to the governors.
Oh, I thought they raised it by $30 per student. Is that
Yeah, they
not
increase
correct?
it by student. You're
Christine,
muted.
can't hear you.
Sorry about that. That's part of the funding formula.
Right, but yeah, the governor raised it 30. I thought the House raised it another 30.
I was talking about Chapter 70 is the same in the House budget that just came out about a week ago.
Right.
Same as the governor's?
Mhm. I was looking at my cherry
I was
sheet.
looking at mine in Somerville, and it's $30 per student higher, so I don't know, maybe I looked at it wrong.
Wakefield's was the same.
Okay, well, I do hope that 700,000 does come through, but we're not there yet. So, maybe between now and our town meeting in mid-May, that'll be clarified and make all this a moot point.
Very good, Dan. Thank you. You all set? Yeah.
Yeah.
Joe.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what, excuse me, what Dan was saying about the foundation budget. For 25 years, we've been well over the foundation budget. And it's been talked about in the finance committee for these 25 years that I've been on here and more. And we are well over the foundation budget. So to use the foundation budget as any parameter of the present budget makes no sense at all to me. And as indicated for Dan, I just think I am very, very concerned about the forecast. That's the basis of this, not whether we're for schools or not for schools or whatever. I'm just very concerned about the future. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Right, yeah.
Doug Butler.
Hey, just as a point of clarification, in terms of getting additional Chapter 70 funding and sort of not getting set up, sort of like Reading now gets way too much Chapter 70, but we're 1.64% away from hitting that goal. So our targeted aid share for Chapter 70 is 17.5%. Right now, the Chapter 70 percentage of the foundation budget is 19.14. So our foundation budget would not have to go up terribly dramatically to get reduced growth of the Chapter 70 funding to whatever the nominal amount is. That isn't so much a question of our spend there, but it stems from what our enrollment is. And one of the reasons, interestingly enough, and I'm not sure that I saw this in your things, Doug or Christine, was, that they have us shrinking by 45 people next year. is what they have as, they have our enrollment shrinking by 45, which is one of the other reasons why a number of the other towns have done a fair bit better than us in that state. But it's more just a question of where we fund is just, Steve's always complaining about Reading and Melrose, and there's a couple of reasons why they get more money. But I think we shouldn't we shouldn't take the growth of the Chapter 70 money for granted, because by the way, it could go away with not a dramatic change in our spending. I know, Joe, you're like, oh, we way overspend for it. We don't actually way overspend for it. Our required contribution to hit that number is, their foundation budget is 43 million. Their required district contributions 34. They gave us 8.5 to cover that goal. If our required if we fell short of that, or if our foundation budget goes up by not that much, we end up hitting up against that 17.5% goal for Chapter 70 funding as a targeted aid share. That being said, I don't think that's the case here. And by the way, the other question is, and this gets to, I know Evan has had this conversation in terms of like, well, what are we doing here if we're going to sort of just approve things? Look, by the way, we didn't approve this. This came in, they took 500 grand off. Now, you might not like how they took the 500 grand to the town off, but by the way, if they didn't, then that was going to be the case. We do this with budgets all the time. And this is to Dan's like, oh, I'm not, and Dan isn't anti-education. Dan's super pro-education and pro like all these things. He's just worried about, he's rightly worried from the actuarial standpoint of where's this money going to come from. We're not going to get this ledger balanced. And frankly, we won't. Look, we're going to run a deficit next year, no matter whether or not we give them 500 grand less or not. But the bigger question is what are we, what are we looking to do? And by the way, do you think you're going to win this vote? I don't know. I know you're like, oh, we have to try if we think it's the right thing. I'm like, yeah, sure. But I don't think it's the right thing. I think the schools have reduced. I think the schools do have to increase some transparency. And by the way, it's not the two people here who we need to be beating up over this stuff. It's the people that are voted in, and you're not going to change that because none of us, frankly, want to do that job.
Hey, I did it. I did it.
Oh, yeah, sorry, there is one that did it.
Yeah, but he was like 12. He had nothing going on.
I also voted no on that at 11.4, by the way, but I digress.
By the way, that saved my kids like $4 grand in kindergarten expenses. So thank you for all that.
You're welcome. I paid into it and didn't get any benefits. So there you go.
Yeah, go Zillow your house and stop complaining.
Great. Okay. Spirited dialogue as always. So is there any other discussion on the motion before you to lower the school's budget by an additional $500,000?
So, Mr. Chairman, can we just clarify that a yes vote means you agree with Dan's number and a no vote means you either agree with the school's number or some other number?
Correct. So I was going to try to,
all right.
So, no, it's great. I just want to make sure I'm getting it right, and I'll welcome any comments. So what we're saying is the motion before you is to lower the school budget by an additional $500,000. So if you were to vote yes on this motion, you're agreeing to lower the budget. And then we would be going back, I believe, to a new school budget number to vote on said new school budget number that this body is agreeing to. Does anybody disagree with that?
Unless the motion to amend passes, in which case you're voting on that number afterwards.
Right.
I'm going to take a roll call vote. The motion before you is to lower the school budget by $500,000 from what was originally called out by Kevin. Everybody understand that? A yes vote means you're agreeing with the amendment. A no vote means you don't agree with the amendment. Alphabetically, Ed.
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Bill Boudry,
You're muted.
Bill? No. Thank you. You're a no. Doug Butler,
Also muted.
No.
thank you. Stefan,
No.
Amy,
No.
Dennis Hogan,
No,
Teray,
No.
Evan Kenny,
Yes.
Dawn,
No,
Dan Sherman,
Yes,
Jim Sullivan, no. Ellie,
No.
1, 2, 3, 4 yeses, the rest noes. The noes carry. The motion does not pass. Very good. Thank you. We are back. I don't need to get a new motion, I don't think, correct, somebody?
Back to the
Correct.
primary motion.
yep, you're right.
Back to the current motion, was put on the floor by, Dan and then seconded, no, I'm sorry, it was put on the floor
Yeah,
by.
it was.
Yeah, Dan, and then I think Dennis.
No, I second it.
Oh, Joe did? Okay, Joe did.
Very good. So the motion before you on the floor then is to, we're voting on the budget before you for tax levy of $49,590,191, $115,000 from available bus for a total of $49,705,191. That was the original numbers, correct?
Yeah, you got it.
Any
Yeah,
point
it's
of order?
49, yeah, 49 million, not 49,000, but yes.
So thank you. I'm not good with math and engineering.
That would make for a tough 2024.
Yeah.
All right,
Mr. Chairman,
I'm making a new list. Sorry, yes, sir. Dennis, did you say something?
yes, and this is anticipation of Doug being able to come back with a decent year-end back, and hopefully if the negotiations end prior to town meeting and they settle the contract, any of the surplus money that they had put aside for negotiations for this year, well, I would expect to come back to the town and not be left in the kitty. And I'm taking that in good faith with you, Doug, that's, I hope you're gonna be able to convince your committee to do that. But that's why I'm going forward the way I'm doing it. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, roll call vote. Ed Bean,
Yes.
Bill Bertrand,
Yes.
Bill Boudry,
Reluctantly.
Yes.
Doug Butler,
Yep.
Stefan Chase,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes,
Teray,
Yes.
thank you. Evan,
No.
Dawn,
yes,
Dan,
No,
Jim Sullivan, yes. Ellie,
Yes.
very good. The motion carries. There were 2 noes and the rest were yays. The motion carries for the school budget. Thank you for the process, for the spirited discussion. And appreciate the feedback, input, and discussions on transparency, on Excel, and the school's support in this tonight. So, Kevin, is there any point of order, anything you need right now relative to that?
Yes, I'd like to ask either Doug Lyons or Christine. I need an updated breakdown for the recommendation book that we have for town meeting of the school budget. So if I can get an updated figure from either of those two, I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
Kevin, I think we should be able to take care of that tomorrow. Are you in the office?
Yes, I am.
Can I give you a call in the morning?
Yes, great.
Happy, I'll call you then.
All right, thanks.
Okay, great. I have just committee comments. I'm sorry, so many hands up. Kevin, you're all set, I assume. Evan, is
Yes.
your hand up?
Yeah, no, I just want to make it clear to Christine and Doug that I don't, we're talking about transparency. I don't think you're not transparent. I actually really like your budget document. I think what my colleagues are asking for is just a manipulable document so they can do more analyses. So I do really like your budget document. Actually, some of what I did when I was in Amesbury, I modeled off of this document. I think it's great. I think you break out a lot, and I think it's good. I think they're just looking for something they can work with, and the PDF conversion doesn't always work out smoothly. So I think you guys do a really good job presenting your budget. I think the only missing piece is just something we can manipulate. And we may not ask that of other departments, but you guys are by far the biggest chunk. So, but I think you're doing good work.
No, we get it from every other department, Evan. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Excel sheets, so the budgets,
We do get it. We do get it.
Yeah, we get it from Kevin. We get it from Kevin out of Munis, and it's not a difficult export. You can just export it, I think, from Munis into an Excel document. So I don't think, Christine, it's going to be a lot of work. But again, we can chat offline if I don't know how you build your LEA. To me, that doesn't look like Munis, but it might be. I don't know. But we can do that offline.
Great. Appreciate the help. Joe.
Jim.
I'm moving to committee comments or general comments.
Before
Joe.
that, is this our last meeting prior to town meeting?
At this point, I believe it is the last scheduled meeting, yes.
At our last meeting, there was a discussion about a resolution regarding the economic development position.
That's correct. So there was a discussion of the way town council's using ARPA funds and our desire to have a comment. So I was going to talk to Steve when he gets back from vacation. I/Steve would draft something to that effect and either get it out for comment or I'll look to schedule another meeting. The easiest thing is probably to schedule another meeting.
Okay, I mean, I'd be glad to file the motion, have a motion now that we resolve to oppose the town council's obtaining that economic development position, using ARPA funds to do so.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. So we did talk about it last time, but there was not a motion that was made. So so the motion is to prepare and deliver a resolution when I go up and speak about the town council budget, correct?
Correct.
Just jot it down since I'll be making the meeting minutes.
I mean, I think the motion, Mr. Chairman, can just be to oppose the town council budget or to amend it to be reduced by $100,000.
Yeah, right. So we voted on the budget already.
Somebody fired who you don't, and still gets the.
Right. That wasn't the way to do it. The way to do it was just to make a resolution indicating that we oppose the town council using ARPA funds to get the economic development position, period.
Understanding that ARPA funds are not sustainable funds.
Correct.
But also, we don't have a line item authority, but we don't have any authority, so we can do it that way.
We don't, but if we make the resolution, hopefully they might listen.
Sure.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Any discussion on the motion to deliver resolution in reference to the town council budget for the use of the ARPA funds for what's the title again? Sorry.
Economic development, I think.
I'll find it, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever the heck it's called position.
Any discussion?
Do you have a second? Was there a second?
Yeah, I get Joe and Ed, I believe. Joe
Okay,
made it,
all right.
Ed seconded, is that right?
Yeah.
Do you want to roll call this?
I don't believe I want to roll call this, no.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So
1, 2, 3, 4.
Wait a minute. No, my hand was up twice, so.
Yeah, you make up your mind, will you?
3 no's. Thank you. Got it. Is everybody comfortable with that? All right.
Is that what it is? Is it Stefan, Teray, and Dawn or no, right?
That's what I have. Yes.
Oh, okay, I just want to make sure.
And I have everybody else in attendance as yes, and I have that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any
I'll
other,
move- I'll move to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
wait a minute, any other I appreciate that. Any other committee comments?
Easy, Bill. Sheesh.
I would have
I'm
seconded that.
Stefan,
I just wanted to clarify that just a simple majority will provide the committee enough to resolve on this.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a resolution, that's all.
No, it's a valid question. I didn't consider 2/3, so.
The only 2/3 I know is bylaws and borrowings.
Right,
They're all statutory. Anytime you need 2/3, it's statutory.
but that's
The
only,
only
for
thing
town- that's only for town meeting, not for the finance committee.
Yeah,
Right.
because we have no authority. We have no
Right.
binding authority. So
Right.
yes, a resolution, if 8 of us say yes, then that's what it is.
The only thing I'd add, Jim, is maybe you can try and make it so that we're opposed to this use of ARPA money, but we certainly don't want a amendment from the crowd that reduces it by 100,000, gets the people riled up.
I do.
Should it make sure you explain that, well, maybe you haven't.
I mean, that's where the.
No, we don't get to
appropriations are
fire
made, Bill.
town council members. We actually have to fire people who do these things.
No, they
No.
can make decisions on where that appropriation reduction goes.
Right.
Which ought to be the position that we're voting against.
Right, but
Yeah,
they,
you're right.
but
They
they
could
can't
get
use the
fees paid
ARPA
by
money
$100,000, I don't know.
to spend for the woman who would get fired or the people who would get fired.
Nobody's
One
gonna
of-
get fired. Steve is not gonna hire the position until the funds are allocated. He told us that.
Right.
So there is nobody hired. He's not gonna even post a job until after these budgets, after this town meeting cycle.
And Doug, I might even make the motion on the floor at town meeting.
I know, well, this is, we're not always on the same side, even though you find me amusing.
I do
Yes,
find
they
you
are, yeah.
amusing. I definitely find you amusing.
It's a engaged group of people. I will also say, I have to write a forward every year that goes in the book, the beginning of the book for the town meeting. And I do plan on speaking about, current conditions and speaking about use of ARPA funds and also basically reiterating what you're considering with the resolution that, I believe the use and Steve has done a good job and town council has done a good job with ARPA in a lot of cases for say capital or one-off things. And there are other cases where they haven't. And some of that theme is going to be in the forward in the book. So just a heads up on that. Anything else? So now I went to a crappy Bruins game last night and I'm tired. So I am ready for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, thank you all.
Aye.
Nice
Thank you.
job tonight. Appreciate it. If we need another meeting, I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.